What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to an all-new episode of TAETRO Talks. Very excited for today's interview today with Sanjay C. And I know I'm looking in the chat. It looks like a lot of you all are excited for today's chat. It's going to be a really good one. If you don't know, we do this show every Thursday, TAETRO Talks, where we interview somebody from somewhere in the music world, somebody who's got music kind of as a career or is just a really amazing music creator. So if you haven't watched some previous interviews, I've interviewed people like Gnarly Beats, who's this great finger drummer, machina player, Rachel K. Collier a few weeks back, and I've got a couple really cool guests lined up for the next couple weeks. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel either here or at youtube.com/343labs. Turn notifications on so you know when we're going live with another interview, because I will take questions from the chat as we go, and I see a bunch of people lighting up. What is good, everybody? Thank you for tuning in today. If you don't know, today's stream is brought to you by 343 Labs, which is an electronic music school based in New York, Berlin, and online. You can take classes no matter where you are in the world: music production, Ableton Live, Logic Pro, mixing and mastering, all kinds of music-related courses. Head to 343labs.com to check out more about that. The link is in the description. And what do you say we get on with the show? So you all know our guest. If you do have questions for our guest, save them, because we're going to jump right into the interview, and I'll take questions at the end. And real quick, I figure, why don't I just play you all a clip of our guest on the show today?
So yeah, this arrived.
Yes. Sanjay C., welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm so stoked to have you on here. I think our communities are erupting, or they're combining into one mega community right now, because, of course, I think I would love to hear in the chat, who in the chat is a subscriber to both of our channels, who was before this stream? I think that's a good question to answer. But I'm so excited to have you. Thank you for being on the show today.
Yeah, really, really happy to be here. And I have to say, I've been a fan of your channel for ages. Before I started my own YouTube channel, I've been a fan of yours. I got introduced to the Seaboard through your channel, and that's kind of what I started with my channel. That was one of my first videos showing the Seaboard block. And I learned a lot from you, a lot from watching your channel. And I love your Mentor Mondays and all that stuff. I learned so much from you, and I'm a huge fan of your music and the work that you do on YouTube. Had to say that up.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I think that is a perfect place to start this interview, though, because you talked about where you started with your YouTube channel and starting with the Seaboard block. And I got to know, like, how did you get into this content creation? How did you get into building a YouTube channel? What sparked that imagination to go ahead and start your own YouTube channel?
Okay, so I had actually taken a break from music for about 10 years. So I'd done a lot of music before, music production. I used to use Logic when it was eMagic. Do you remember when Logic?
I don't even know.
That was before Apple had Logic.
Yeah, we did a show with somebody teaching us about Logic a few weeks
Yeah.
back, and they mentioned that. I never
Yep.
knew that Apple didn't always own Logic, but that's hilarious. So it was called eMagic.
Yeah, eMagic was the company that owned Logic. That's what I started with. So I used to, make my own music, write my own songs and stuff like that. Took a break from that for a long time, and I wanted to get back into it, but I wanted to really start fresh with a different mindset completely. So I actually started with Ableton this time. I said, I'm not going to go back to what I used before because I
Hmm.
just want to take a different approach. And I thought session view in Ableton, I didn't know anything about it. Let me start with that. And I started just looking at what was new out there in the music production world. The Seaboard block was this new, crazy new thing. And I said, let me get with it. Let me get that. And then when I got into Ableton and started with the Seaboard block, I said, what would really keep me motivated to keep making music and keep learning more about this is if I kind of chronicle the story in some way.
Document the
And I said,
journey.
yeah, exactly. So I said, okay, let me just start making YouTube videos and see how that goes. The first one I did on the Seaboard block actually got a lot of views right away. And I filmed it with my iPhone and, put it out there. It was
Yes.
basically just, hey, I opened my Seaboard block and here's what it sounds like. And I'm pretty excited about it. That was it. But I got a lot of views and I said, this is really going to help me keep on learning and keep on doing more. So I started just documenting the whole process. And once I started learning what people wanted to see more, and I started making music that I wasn't too shy to share with everyone else.
Hmm.
I just started putting more and more of that stuff out there, and just things started growing from there. And I don't like watching some of my old videos. I
Same.
get so self-conscious about it because I was trying to become who I thought I needed to be back then. And there are some old videos where I have this like crazy energy that is so unusual to who I really am. I
For
was like, wait,
sure.
what was I trying to do in that video? I was just trying to be like, I tried to be that super energetic YouTube guy, but it wasn't me. So that faded real quick. And then I kind of settled into what you see today, which is, the real me on a day-to-day basis. This is kind of who I am. And
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with it now. And I love making new content because it helps me explore music and helps me do so much more. And the best part is just, getting to know people out there. I mean, people who are new to music production, people who help me learn new things, and then linking up with creators like you too. So it's just been an amazing journey.
Yeah, the community aspect is so cool. And I want to reiterate the point that you brought up because I usually talk about content creation and being a vehicle for building an audience and,
Yeah.
connecting with the community so that people will consume your music. And I love how you talked about you really started content as a means of keeping yourself consistent and holding yourself accountable. And it seems like that was super successful for you. I think that's a great aspect of content creation. Hey, if I got to put out a
Yeah.
video every week, I've got to do something productive. I'm super curious. I want to go back a little bit and talk about
Sure.
that break. So that
Uh-huh.
10-year break, is that what you said?
Yep. 10 years.
That's amazing. Like, it's kind of crazy. So you're saying for that 10 years, you took a 10-year period where you did not make any music or just casually played music? Like, what does that even mean, a 10-year break from music? I can't even imagine.
It was literally a break. I hardly played music. I mean, I had a keyboard upstairs. I'd just play that casually every now and then, not even that often. I wouldn't record any music. I didn't record any songs. I didn't do any production work, nothing like that. It was just kind of like I just turned it off and I thought, yeah, music was a nice time in my life, but that was then and I moved on. But
Yeah.
getting back to it, so much had changed in that 10 years. That's what amazed me the most. So when I came
Yeah.
back to it, I couldn't believe how much better everything got in that 10-year period. The
And almost how much
instruments,
easier everything was,
yes,
like how,
everything was easier. Everything sounded better. Like all the virtual instruments sounded like, what was I working with before? These are so much better. I mean, and just the tools had become so much. I started to say every time in my videos that, I mean, it's just the best time to be a musician, to be a producer, because it's accessible. It's
yeah.
easy to get the tools you need to make professional sounding music at home, and it's the fun stuff is here. It's not hard to learn it, and yeah, we're in a really, this is a great time to take up music production. And I know a lot of people are doing it because of the COVID thing too.
Yeah. And I think it's amazing just for some, because there's some young folks in the audience, and then I know there's just like a wide age range in the audience too, but it's so amazing to think that somebody can be a musician, take a break for 10 years, come back to it, and then like end up like now you're one of the biggest music personalities on YouTube, and like you built that, and maybe it wouldn't have been possible had you not taken that 10-year break. And then go ahead.
Go ahead. No, yeah, I was going to say that. I mean, I'm super grateful for, where I am right now in YouTube, on YouTube, and I can't believe where I am. I'm so thankful, especially again for the community that builds around it. But I think you're absolutely right that focusing on that 10-year break, and I think that's really important. I'm glad that you're doing that, because I have so many people who do comment on my videos saying the exact same thing without even knowing that I had done it. And saying, I used to make music and now I'm trying to get back into it. I don't know this, it's so difficult to learn this stuff. And I love, writing back to them and saying, I was exactly where you were. And I thought coming back was going to be this big chore and that I'd never be able to do it. And I'd never be able to, release music that I really like. But it happened. And you could totally do it and discover a new way of producing music, the new type of music that you like to produce. I should mention this other thing. When I started this again, I didn't want to do the same type of music that I was doing before. I did a bunch of rock, some R&B, and mainly some pop stuff. And I said, I want to learn something new. So I started learning EDM and hip hop, and I said, I'm going to stick to this just so that I can challenge myself to learn something new. And of course, now when I write music and when you guys hear my music, you might be like, yeah, that sounds kind of pop. And that's okay. It's okay. I sound the way, my music comes out from whatever is inside of me. And maybe that is a lot of pop, and that's okay. What comes out, comes out. But learning and challenging yourself to learn other types of music just opens up these things that you never thought were possible. And you discover new ways of approaching even the music that you typically do. I had somebody commenting the other day saying, hey, I don't really listen to your type of music, but I really liked you doing your demo of your workflow. And I said, that's exactly right. I've learned so many of my techniques that I apply to pop songs from watching people who do strictly EDM or strictly hip hop. And it's opened up so many doors for me, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of this was based around a real creative challenge. Like, are you the type of personality like willing to take on any challenge? Not really, no fear. Like, was there a little bit of fear at the beginning, or were you just like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to take on this challenge?
It's much easier in the beginning because the audience is small. So I knew that I could put something out. And there aren't that many people watching. So if it sucks, I'll be okay. There won't be that many people that are going to critique me too hard. So it was, especially if you're starting out, right? There's plenty of time to make mistakes. Put out your stuff, even if you don't think it's that great, and just keep on doing that, and you'll become iteratively better. And you never know. People may respond to your music right away or your videos right away. But when I started out, there was a little bit of the fear because YouTube can be very unforgiving sometimes. There are commenters who will really eat you alive if you don't say something that they agree with. But you kind of just got to do it, and your audience will find you. And I think that's the way to create that community that really lasts, is the people who appreciate what you do and who give back to you as well. That becomes a real community, a long-lasting community. As far as the challenge is concerned, I do love giving myself challenges. It's nerve-wracking, but that's the stuff that's the most rewarding. Because if you keep doing things that come easy to you, then you never feel a sense of reward. As when you do something that, wow, I don't know how to tackle this problem. I'm going to try to learn my best on how to do it. And then when I do, what I typically do is I actually show it on YouTube.
Yeah.
And it does give me a feeling of reward from learning something new. I don't want to just keep putting out stuff that I know how to do. I want to challenge myself. And that helps me challenge my viewers as well. They learn something new.
That's super inspiring. Oh, the cat is joining us. That's amazing.
Okay.
I'm so stoked for that.
All right, here he is.
What's the cat's name?
The cat's name is Rome, and
Hello,
Rome really
Rome.
wants to go out. Rome wants to go outside because he likes chewing the grass outside on the lawn. But so he's been meowing at me for that reason only.
The pets get cabin fever
All
too.
right.
We're not the only ones who get cabin fever.
Yes.
I'm I love this whole story. I love that you saw it as a creative challenge, and I think a lot of people, basically something you said, like you were very sure, you were like, I can do this and make a lot of mistakes and not a lot of people will see it. I think a lot of people don't realize that. I think a lot of people think of putting something on the internet as the whole internet is
Yes.
about to see it, but it really
Right.
doesn't work like that. So I've been trying to stress that too, especially in Mentor Mondays. Like, put stuff out and put your worst stuff out. Like, embrace that the first few things you make are going to be the worst things you ever make.
Right.
Which leads me to my next question, talking about having to learn video. Like, this, what we
Okay.
do is completely not just being a musician. You know, there is that important side of being a musician,
Yeah.
creating music. And then there's the video production side, and your videos are so
Right.
pristine. You've got like these great smooth B-roll shots. You've got your nice setup. It's like staged super nicely, lit really well. What was that journey like? I know you talked about filming your first video on your phone, which, you know,
Yeah.
very same situation for me as well. But what was that journey like of learning video production? Was it a pain point, or were you also excited to be learning that?
I was really excited to learn it, and I did it for a very specific reason. I've watched other videos about music production and music gear on YouTube, and back then, when I was first watching that, this was years before I even started my YouTube channel. I was watching it. I'm like, this is kind of boring. I want to get excited about this gear. I want to get excited about music production, but I'm not having fun watching this video. And so I wanted to take a different approach to making my videos because I think gear is super exciting. I think gear can be super sexy.
Yeah.
And I wanted to show that in my videos that, yeah, you need to be enthusiastic about everything you're doing, every angle you're looking at this. Make a space that is inspiring to you. When you see when you come into your studio and you're like, yeah, this is a place I'm gonna make something that's gonna be super dope, right? Because you're looking at it and you're like, this is the environment of creating that type of music. I wanted to show that in my videos, that when you see a piece of gear, you're like, I want that. I want to be able to do that. And I can hear the music that I create when I am watching this guy's video. And I think it's a motivator. It inspires us to do something, the visuals along with the music. So yeah, it was something that I started learning very slowly, but there's so many great YouTubers out there that just do it so well. So it's pretty easy to just go on Peter McKinnon's channel and watch him
Yes.
for a little while, and he's a great teacher, and you can just pick up some tips from him and from other places on YouTube and learn this stuff. It's all out there. We have the benefit of having YouTube and having great content creators out there, and
Absolutely.
how they cut their video, how they put the music to the video. I mean, take Andrew Huang. I mean, he just does amazing stuff making entertaining videos that make people motivated to create, right? So yeah, we've got so many great people out there that just do amazing stuff. I remember watching a video of yours back. I think it might have been older than 2 years. You were in your bedroom making some kind of music. It was
Hmm.
the camera was on the floor. You were on the floor, and it was just a cool visual. It just added to the music,
Yeah.
and it made me feel I want to do that. I want to be in the zone like TAETRO's in the zone. And when I watch other YouTubers having a good time with the gear that they have on their videos, it makes a huge difference. And I wanted to show that. I wanted to convey that in my videos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is almost, it's just another facet to the art, because I wonder like how you define yourself as an artist, because I know I can't just say I'm a musician, I can't just say I'm a video creator. It's this super hard thing to
Yeah.
place, like when people ask you. So what do you say when people ask, like, what do you do?
I think I'm becoming something I didn't think I was going to become. I think when I started this, I wanted to, um, like tell the story of the journey of me getting back into music, right? But in the center of that story, the way I was thinking I would tell it was music, was me creating music and showing you the music I was creating. It's almost like YouTube was just going to be a vehicle for my music to, okay, here's a new song I wrote and hope you enjoy it. But
Right.
it ended up being very different. I ended up being more of the reviewer and the teacher. And I started seeing the reaction of the audience to that. And they really liked seeing me do that. Not that they didn't like the music, but I think I even put out more videos that were more reviews and more teaching in the beginning to kind of grow the audience. And that really turned out being something that they responded to, and that I started really liking, enjoying doing that. It's something I've been wanting to do for a long time. I've been wanting to teach. I've always had this dream of being a teacher one day.
Yeah.
And I enjoy the teaching aspect of it. So it feels good. I feel natural doing it, and people really respond to it. So I would say if people ask me now, what are you? I'm a content creator and teacher. I would say teacher over musician, but I don't think you can disconnect the two from what we do, because I think my videos won't be as interesting if I didn't share music along with them. If people didn't see what I could do creatively with something, it maybe wouldn't give them hope of what they could
Right.
possibly do. So they can't be disconnected. And I do like sharing my sound when I create videos. I create music for all my videos. So it's always a chance for me to keep experimenting and keep sharing my music. But I think that's taken a lower priority now in who I am on YouTube.
For sure. It's definitely a perk of being a music YouTuber, right? We don't have to
Yeah.
deal with any of the licensing stuff because we just make our own music for it.
But it's harder for us. It's harder
Yeah.
because every time you release a video, it's not like, somebody is vlogging to the camera and just go grab some music from somewhere and throw it in
Yeah.
there.
It
We've
has to
got
be
to
yours.
create the music.
Yeah.
Yeah. So every week I'm like, okay, I'm making a video this week. I have to create a piece of music for that video
Exactly.
using, the tool that I'm introducing or the new plugin that I'm talking about.
It's double
And
duty.
it's double duty. You're not only worried about, well, how does this shot look? How does my voice look when I'm talking? But how does that music sound? Is the levels right? Is the bass coming in? It's one more thing. And I think it's even more challenging, but it's kind of cool.
For sure. There's another aspect that I want to talk about to kind of like pull the curtain, because so many folks that consume our content probably don't know what we do outside of doing content, and I think it's very easy to see it and look at it all like this is what they do, this is all they do, this is their job. But what I know from you is that you actually work a full-time job and have worked a full-time job for a while, and I wonder if can we just pull the curtain back on that a little bit and maybe just talk about what you do and what's the balance between the two. Like, how are you finding time? How are you making it all work?
It is really tough. I don't want to sugarcoat it. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's probably the most challenging thing I've ever done in my life. It's the toughest thing I've ever done. But it is worth it because it has led me into things that I never thought possible, into creative avenues, into meeting people and sometimes helping people and having people help me and being a motivator to people and stuff. It's just opened so many doors. It's been worth all the work.
Right.
But yes, behind the scenes, what's going on is that I have a day job. I work like the 9 to 5:30, Monday to Friday, and it is a pretty intense job. It really takes a lot of my focus and energy. And I usually just have the evenings and weekends to focus on the music and the YouTube stuff. So with how much time YouTube takes just to create a script for a video, to prepare your shots, to learn the new gear, to learn a new aspect of production, to teach that, that takes a lot of time. And I used to do one video a week every Sunday. Now I'm doing two. The news reports is something I've added recently.
Yeah.
But even that one video would really take all the time that I had in the evenings and on the weekends. Saturday morning is usually the time I start filming for my Sunday video. So I do a lot of talking to the camera, and then I do a lot of the B-roll shots. And that stuff maybe takes about 3-4 hours. And then editing takes me 8 hours for that video. And that video could be, 7 to 10 minutes,
Yeah.
and it's 8 hours of editing. And yeah, it's a lot
And
of
we didn't
work.
even calculate all the prep time. Like, you get a new piece of gear in, you got to sit with it, you got to use it, you got to learn you got to make sure you know what you're talking about. And so often it's like we get new gear that's not out yet. It's not like we can watch the latest YouTube video
exactly
to figure out how to use it. We're literally like sitting there either with the manual or just like figuring it out on our own.
Discovering things.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, there's a lot of that, and I can't, dot every I and cross every T, but I've got to just do the best that I can do. And I've always learned that that's okay. That's totally fine. Most people are very forgiving about, oh yeah, well, you didn't figure out how to do that. I did, and here's how you do it. I'm like, that's awesome, great. So, other people who are viewing this video will benefit from your knowledge that I didn't know. That's great. But yeah, there's so much involved in making what you see. And yeah, if you get into YouTube and doing the kind of stuff that TAETRO and I do, I think you really have to love it. You really have to be okay with the stuff that you don't really like to do too. Like, I don't care for editing. Editing takes so much time.
I don't care for it either. Yes, it's a nightmare.
But you have to do it, and it's. I think it's like that with any job. You've got whatever job you have. You've got the things that you enjoy doing, and then those things that kind of suck. You don't want to spend your time on doing that stuff, but you do. And if the rewards are worth it to you, if what you achieve from it is worth it to you, then yeah, you bite the bullet and you do it.
Yeah, and the important word you used is work, because I'm sure a lot of people see YouTubers and think like, this looks really fun, because you're just seeing the end product. But at some point, music being something we both love, video creation being something we both love, it has evolved into real work.
Yes, it is. And you could totally make this your full-time job eventually. I mean, when I could totally see how after, my 9-to-5 job is done, and I would love to move into this full-time, and I could totally see me making a career out of it. And I think it's a good thing to do. If you are getting started, I would say build that audience first. Make sure you gain that traction, and then, start considering moving into it full time if you want. But you can totally do it. And I was, I had a question from one of my viewers about what are other ways to make money in music these days. This is a big one. Yeah. This is definitely a way that you can do it. Especially with people who already know some stuff about music production and about music gear. Teach people what you know. And you'd be surprised at how, even if you think that, well, I'm not an expert like so-and-so I watch on YouTube or so-and-so, but it doesn't matter. There's always somebody who's at your level or below your level and needs to learn to be at your level. There's always something you could teach people. And I think YouTube is a great place to do that. And it gives you a lot of opportunity to just share your knowledge. And maybe not even YouTube. I mean, there's Skillshare, there's Udemy, there's all these places you can teach people what you do. And it's great, even if you just want to make some extra cash on the side.
Yeah, like little private lessons.
To do it.
You don't have to be the expert in the thing. You just have to know a little more than the person the next rung down from you, Like, as long as you know a little more than the next person, like, you have something to teach. And I think people get caught up in having to be a straight up expert in something to be able to teach it. Whereas, like, a lot of the things I do in my channel, I really hone in and focus on how I do things, and I try not to purport myself as like I'm the expert on this music production thing or mixing or whatever it is. I'm like, no, this is just how I do it, and maybe you would also like to do it this way. And people seem to like that approach,
Yes, absolutely. And I think honestly, I'm not an expert at all. I mean, I'm far from an expert at Ableton. I'm new to Ableton. I haven't been using it for that long.
Right.
And so, that's okay though. If I created a song and you like the way it sounds, I'll show you how I did it. And there may be an easier way to do things, and that's fine if you know another way, but there's so many people who are just starting from zero, and them seeing the way I do things, how I create sounds, gives them ideas of how they can approach music. And I think that's great. I love watching the experts, but I think I learned a lot more from watching anybody, even if they're not an expert, to watch their creative workflow.
Totally.
Because that's so much more interesting to me. I'm not so interested in the technicalities of how did you make that synth sound that way. I'm so super interested in what is your what's happening in your mind when you're
What's the thought
creating music?
process?
What's the thought process of creating the sound that way? And why did you want to do it now? Why did you approach it that way? It's so much more fascinating to me than just, reading a manual or watching an expert who's like, this is how you do it. Click, click, click,
Yeah.
click. I find that super fascinating. And I think that's what people even enjoy watching for me sometimes, because I'm like, I know I'm not doing this the right way, but I
this
did
is
it.
just how I figured out how to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And their reaction instead is like, hey, I loved watching your thought process.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, exactly. I love that same thing in other people.
Yeah. On that note, I wonder what, if any, formal training do you bring to this from maybe your younger years, like piano lessons, any kind of schooling, music schooling, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I was classically trained in piano for 15 years. I started when I was 5 years old.
Wow.
And it was just, yeah, it was strictly classical. And when you're a little kid, you don't like lessons of any kind. I mean, most kids don't like to practice and all that stuff.
Yep.
But I stuck with it. Thanks, Mom, for sending me to piano lessons. But it was something I really started to appreciate later in life.
Mm-hmm.
Once I had reached that age where I said, hey, I want to start writing my own songs, all that classical training comes in handy at that point, right?
Yeah.
Because then you're like, oh, this is so much easier. I kind of know where my fingers need to go. I know what the chord should sound like. I understand these melodies and things like that. So yeah, that training was really valuable. I hardly ever play classical music anymore, but it has really come in handy to me understanding music and music theory and stuff like that. Much later on, I started writing my own stuff, and then I started just kind of playing by ear and seeing if I could mimic what other people were doing, on the radio. And I started learning to write music that way, and then started learning production because I was writing music and I wanted to record my songs.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, I got the piano part. I have some lyrics. I want to record these vocals now. So I, out of necessity, started learning music production, how to record my own stuff. And that's how it kind of progressed. And I learned music production myself. And yeah, when I first started, it was really hard to find resources for learning. This is before YouTube.
Right.
And now it's so much easier. You guys, you are lucky to have, YouTube as a resource. When I learned music production, there was nobody. I remember going to Guitar Center one time, and I was just getting started. I didn't know what gear to buy. I didn't know how to start with music production. I went in there, and I asked somebody, and he was like, "Oh, just buy this, and go read this."
Always helpful, those folks at Guitar Center, aren't they?
I'm not calling it Guitar Center, but this is honestly what happened. This is really what happened. And I left there thinking, I'm never going to learn this. Nobody seems to want to help. Nobody wants to say, this is how I did it, and so you can do it too, and it's not that hard. He honestly left me feeling like this was going to be too hard for me to do.
Well, there was a weird transition period between like not the old way, but like the much harder way, which was either like going to a studio or buying thousands of dollars worth of gear to be able to do it at home. And then that transition into now, it's like, okay, an audio interface is $100, a DAW is whatever, a synth, a MIDI controller is $100. Like we went through this big transition of the tools becoming a lot more accessible, and then also. But what had to catch up with that were the resources and the education. So there were not tutorials like there are now. I think one of the reasons I started my channel was because I loved watching the cool Ableton sessions and the looping sessions. And I was so frustrated that like I would have to reverse engineer how they were doing it, like by watching the video, hitting pause or watching it multiple times to really figure out what was going on. There were no tutorials like that. Now, of course, it's like every live session is paired with a tutorial, but there was this weird transition period in between, like, okay, everybody has this stuff now. Let's figure out how to use it and figure out how to teach it, show people how to use it.
I think too. I think there's still a transition going in mindset of how simple this really is.
Yeah.
I don't think people are truly embracing that, because you could take a tool like Ableton Live and it can be as complex as you want it to be, or as simple as you want it to be. And I think a lot of people still view this as, wow, I've seen some people do some crazy stuff in Ableton, and I don't think I could ever understand that. But it doesn't have to be that complicated. You can keep it very simple. Just focus on really the sounds that you want to put out there. Make just a few tracks and focus on that. You don't have to know every single piece of it. I don't know every single piece of it, of Ableton. I don't know everything, how to do everything in music production, but I focus on the sound that I'm trying to attain and just stick to that. And then try to keep it very, very simple. You don't need to know everything I know. You don't need to know everything that another YouTuber knows out there, but just try to solve the little problems that you want to solve for the music that you're making. That's good enough for now. And then make the music, finish that, put it out there, and then learn something else.
Yeah, and you'll undoubtedly improve over time. Like, that's the thing. You embrace the skills that you have now, you make what you can, and then you go on and you learn that something new, exactly like we said. But I think what's great about your style and your communication, like just your whole like brand and how you make videos, is how accessible you make things. Are you making a concerted effort to speak to not necessarily just beginners, but like to folks who are really feeling anxious about learning all this stuff? Do you put in an effort to make things more accessible on your channel?
It's the Guitar Center guy. He did this. He left this mark on me.
Yeah.
This is why I tell this story all the time, is I don't want anybody else to feel the way I felt leaving Guitar Center that day. I am never getting sponsored by Guitar Center ever in the future, am I?
I think we'll be fine.
But yeah, that's exactly what I don't want anybody to feel that way. So when I approach my videos, I try to keep things as simple as possible. So when even if I say I'm using this plugin and this is what I'm trying to do, I always add a sentence in there explaining why I'm doing what I'm doing. And also trying to say, you don't have to do it this way, or you can use this other plugin, or, I don't want anybody to watch my video and say, I don't know why he did that or what that's for, or that sounded so confusing. The last thing I want you to do when you watch my stuff is to say, I'm confused.
Yep.
So I really make the effort to make sure that anyone at any level, and it is challenging sometimes because I have people who are great producers who, watch my stuff. I listen to their music. I'm like, wow, you make really, really good music. And I want to also give them something, right? So if I do like an Ableton tricks video, I want it to be good for people who are just starting out, good for maybe people intermediate. And I want even people who are more advanced to leave with something. So sometimes what I try to do is, even if you're an advanced Ableton user and I'm doing a tricks video, maybe you get something from my workflow. Maybe you get something from the music edit, and here's why I made the choice in making this little piece of music. So that everybody leaves with something. Because I think that's important. I like watching people's videos, and sometimes I know exactly what they're talking about, but again, I'm more interested in the person's creative process. So I like to add that in all my videos. But yeah, answering your question, I do make a concerted effort to make things very simple, layman's terms, things that are, that anybody can understand and know why they would apply this to their music.
Yeah. And I had a very similar experience. For me, it wasn't the guy at Guitar Center. It was, going to music school, like college, and just having professors, kind of just make things seem, well, of course, you have to learn this and you have to learn this, and then decades of experience and et cetera. Like making it seem like it was really this impossible mountain to climb, and just saying like, no, not really. Like, this can be very manageable, and it is a lot to learn. There is a huge musical journey that you can embark on, and it does take a lot of skill to be able to do the things that we do, but it's not an exclusive club. Anybody can do this.
Exactly.
That's the thing. I want to, and on that note, being that anybody can do this, ready for this ad transition? Anybody can do this. And you can probably do it if you need a little more help. If you've been watching Sanjay and I's channel and you've been learning from us, great. If you want to take a more, deep dive approach, take a course or something like that, you might check out 343labs.com and check out some of the courses we have to offer in Ableton Live from beginner, intermediate, advanced. Same thing for Logic, mixing and mastering courses. You can take all these courses online. We have very, very limited spots in person in NYC, keeping that social distance and safety precautions, all that. And then also in-person classes in Berlin. So 343labs.com. Link is in the description. As I'm saying this, though, chat, I would love to hear from you all. What questions do you have for Sanjay C? Let me know in the chat, because now I'm going to be looking. So even if you've already typed a question, the chat's been going off. I've got to tell you, Sanjay, like they're stoked for this thing happening right now. But
while you're looking at the chat,
yeah,
just for everyone out there, people don't know that TAETRO and I have met before.
It's true.
At NAMM. And there's a picture
That's
of
an amazing picture. I didn't even know that existed.
Isn't that a great picture?
That's fantastic. And we'll never meet in person again, because there will never be another massive meeting. That's so dope. For those of you who don't know, I'm really glad that this chat is happening, because we filmed a really nice chat and interview while we're at NAMM.
That's our next album cover.
That's for sure an album cover right there. If you would like to see a Sanjay C and TAETRO album, drop that in the chat too. Oh man, that's great. But will we ever meet again in person? Who knows?
We're going to make it happen. Masks and social distancing or whatever, we'll make it happen.
We might do a little tour once all this is over, based on our audience now. That would be fun.
We got the album cover too already.
That's true. Wow, that's funny. But yeah, 343labs.com. Drop your questions for Sanjay C in the chat. We're going off the rails here. But real quick, two major things I want to talk about as these questions are coming in. One being your news program. I really want to know more about that. What inspired that? Maybe tell the audience about it in case some of them don't know about it. Like, what inspired it? Are you having fun doing it? What's it all about?
It is the most exciting thing that I do nowadays. And I'll tell you why. First of all, if you don't know, on my channel, every Saturday morning, I release a video. It's usually about 5-6 minutes long, and it's about the latest music gear news. And I throw in some deals if I find some really good deals out there. And I always also look for some freebies. So free plugins, maybe somebody's released a free sample pack or something like that. So I kind of scour the internet, find out the deals, find out the freebies and the latest news in music gear, and put it in one video about 5 minutes long. And it is a super awesome idea that I had. Well, I'm not saying that my idea is amazing, but I'm just saying. You
came up with the idea of the news.
I came up with this idea, and here's why. It's awesome for me because I wanted to cover so much more.
Mm-hmm. Without doing a dedicated video on every single thing.
I can't do a dedicated video on everything. I mean, take for instance, like Arturia just updated their firmware on the Mini Lab.
Yeah.
I'm not going to create a dedicated video on that. I mean, it's an exciting thing to talk about because it's fixed some problems that people were complaining about. It adds some new features. And this happens not just with the Mini Lab, but with tons of music gear out there. There's like little things that come out, little things that that are coming soon, or improve. Maybe there's a new feature in Ableton that I can't make a whole video of it, mostly because I also have the 9-to-5 job. But I wanted a place where I could just say, here's some small pieces of information that you guys really should know. I can't make a full dedicated video about it. And maybe you don't even need one. You just need to know 30 seconds of this information. And this gave me a way to do it. And people have really reacted positively to it. Because I think there really isn't anything out there like it in video format right now.
Unless you want to do a deep dive into something. There's nothing that's doing that catch-all, unless you like keep up with blogs, and I don't know how much people do that. There's no catch-all, like, here's what's happening this week. But I got to tell you, from a content creation standpoint, I'm stressed for you. Like, how are you sourcing the news? Like, do you ever feel like, crap, what if there's no news? But you always find something.
I think that every week. Every week. On Thursday, I'm like, I only have one story. I only saw one interesting thing so far. And no, but then, Thursday night, I kind of looked through some emails. I'm like, oh, hey, Expressive E sent me something. And hey, they're doing something new that's kind of cool. And again, it fits perfectly into this format because maybe they just released a new pack of presets. And, I wouldn't make an entire 10-minute video about that, but I do want my audience to know because I know a lot of them watch my Expressive E Touche videos and they'd want to know they can download this preset pack now. So I always end up finding something, but I always get scared when it's coming to the end of the week of like, what if I can't find anything? But, what's really amazing to me, and somebody commented about this, he said, you're going to run out of things to talk about. And I haven't.
Yeah,
because
somehow the
things are
regular news
constantly
stations do it.
changing.
Yeah, things are constantly changing. You might think music tech might be a little too niche, but I think like there's always something to talk about. And especially like I think that's attributing that to you and your skill set. You can find ways to find these things and make them interesting and make them accessible to your audience in a really cool way. So I think that's probably why people are taking to it.
You know, another thing I discovered that people don't always need to be ready to buy something to be interested in it,
For sure.
right? I got a lot of comments on, in my last news report, I talked about the Universal Audio Solo, that just the Apollo Solo interface that just came out. And, you know, a lot of people said, oh, one day I'll get it. They're not ready to buy it right now. They're not like, oh, I was looking for a review and thanks for mentioning it on your news. But it was just them keeping up with what's changing. What am I slowly building up towards? You know, I want a universal audio interface one day, and now I know that this is available. They make something at this price range, and it's just that stuff. It's like you don't need to apply it to you that day when you're going to hit the buy button online or you're going to use that interface that day. But it's just people enjoy keeping up with this news. They enjoy
Right.
knowing what's changing out there and what they can be evolving towards one day. So yeah, the response has been really good, and honestly, I really enjoy making them. Um, I think I have a lot of fun making them because I discover so much, and I pay attention to a lot more than I wasn't paying attention to before.
Right.
Before I'd be like, okay, I'm planning my big video for this Sunday, and I'm focusing on that, and I'd miss a lot of small things that were happening. And now I discover so much more, and I think. Since I enjoy discovering those things, I think that kind of shows in my videos. And so people kind of get excited about that stuff too.
Yeah. So Saturday mornings, right?
Yes. Saturday mornings, usually 8 o'clock, 8 a.m. Eastern time.
Awesome. Tune into that, folks. I do have a lot of questions coming in, but I want to ask one more. Actually, somebody asked a question about this, which will be perfect. Shnemo Beats asks, what inspired you to make a plugin yourself? And this is where I wanted to go next because you have taken a whole nother step and created your own plugin. Tell us about that and what was the inspiration?
Okay, so I wanted to do it, going back to your thing about taking on challenges. This was a challenge I wanted to take on. I've always wanted to do it. I created a virtual instrument. It's not a ground up plugin. It's a sample based instrument. So it works in samplers. So it's based on the Fender Rhodes electric piano. So I sampled my own Rhodes and I took that and I formatted it for sampler plugins like Contact, like Logic Sampler, Ableton Sampler, and there's also a free one for Soundo. So I put it in that format too. So in case you don't have any of the others, you can just download this free sample plugin and use my instrument. I wanted to do it just because I wanted the experience. I wanted to learn that process of creating a sample-based virtual instrument. That was the easiest approach, right, to creating your own plugin. So I wanted to take that. So it wasn't that hard to do. And I'm actually going to make a video showing how I did it. But it was something really personal too, because I've had this Rhodes for, I would say maybe 20 years now.
Wow.
It's been, I've had it for a long time and I love it. Everybody that comes to my studio and plays that, and then I say, oh, but hey, try this other plugin by whatever. And it sounds really close too. And they're like, no, there's nothing like the original.
Yeah.
And I had to agree with them. And after some time, I said, why don't I just sample mine and try to get as close as I can to the feel of it and put that out there, and other people might really enjoy it too. And I think my version of it feels true to my Rhodes here at home in my studio. So yeah, it sounds real and it sounds authentic and sounds natural to me. It's very natural to play. So yeah, if you're interested, go check it out.
Yeah. Where can people find it?
If you go to sanjayc.com, you'll find it there. And if you want to get a taste for what it sounds like, check out the video on my YouTube channel. It's titled My First Virtual Instrument. You can't miss it.
That's so exciting. I was so stoked when I saw that. I'm so excited to make a beat with it. I've been inundated with stuff and I'm just dying to get to it, but I have some opportunity this weekend and I'm going to be diving in.
Nice. I want to hear what you go on with.
Yeah. Keep it rolling with questions from the chat. Pink Noise asks, what's Sanjay's job? You don't got to say where you
Oh,
work or anything, but
my
what
day
is the
job.
full-time job? Yeah.
So I am a project manager in the IT field. So it's okay. It's not the most exciting job out there, but it is challenging. What I do like about the project management in the IT world is having a deliverable, something that you can, something that has an endpoint, right?
Yep.
So you know what you're going to achieve. You've done it. It feels good. You work with that team, and then it's done, and then you move on to something else. I like that. I think it's been a pretty interesting job. I've been with the company that I work for a very long time. But yeah, would I rather be doing music all day? Yes.
But would you say that that job and that skill set is not exclusive to just the job? Like, would you say you bring a lot of that skill set into doing YouTube, like managing it all, planning a shoot, like doing all this stuff? Like, you learn so much professional skill from that, I can imagine.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would say not even the project management side of things, but the professional skills that you learn from being on the job, working with the team, having to deal with different personalities, and having to know what a client wants, know what your audience wants, know what your listener wants, and being able to understand the give and take of that is important to anything, right? And I think
Yeah.
you definitely apply that, listening to the people and what they need, what they want, and then coming back and adapting what you do so that you can deliver that is
Yeah.
important.
Totally. I think about like my 4 years in nonprofit, how much I learned.
Yeah,
Working with kids, you learn how to communicate really well, which is probably I can attribute to some of the success of the channel. And then just like working
yeah,
in nonprofit is like always a rat race, like doing as much as you can with as little as possible. That is the name of the game here on YouTube. Keep it rolling, keep it rolling. Shravan asks, what are some of your producer inspirations or some of the latest music that you found cool?
okay. Okay, I have a few bands that I've listened to like from when I was a little kid, and I think a lot of my current music gets influenced by that. And one of them, the Beatles, have just inspired me and made my music the way it is today. And I still sometimes approach my music in a way. I'm not saying like the Beatles, but from Beatles songs, Beatle inspirations that I have heard, and it comes out in my music. I hear it in my music. So I think I think I get more inspired by artists than I do by producers. And I think,
Interesting.
yeah, and for example, The Weeknd is a big inspiration to me. And yeah, I'm not really that kind of person that's like, oh, I love the way this person produced this, except when it comes to certain iconic things like Michael Jackson's Thriller album,
Right.
and the production quality of that, and what Quincy Jones has done, and what Timbaland does with his production
Yeah.
style. There's some iconic stuff out there, but if you ask me about some of these smaller producers, I don't know that many, and
I
it's
think
really the art that comes out from these producers that I gravitate towards.
Yeah, I think I'm in a similar boat, but it also that's what draws me into being into more like independent artists and
Yeah,
bands too. Like you talk about a lot of bands or independent artists that I listen to are their own producers. They're doing the songwriting, they're doing the production, they're doing the and I'm super inspired by that. And it's just we live in this weird time where the artist is like that's a big catch-all and that
yeah,
holds a lot of like they're doing production, they're doing songwriting, they're doing it all. So I think we're in a cool time for that. So I tend to go towards artists that are kind of all in one, doing their own things, kind of similar to what you
yeah,
said.
yeah. I love that. Yeah, that's what inspires me. It makes me feel like, hey, I can do the same thing.
Nova Beats asks about what was the spark of inspiration beyond the classical training in piano. What was the spark of inspiration that made you say, "I'm going to make my own music"?
The spark of inspiration. I don't
Was it
think there was a.
Was
Go
it
ahead.
wanting to emulate artists that you love? Like, was it like seeing the Beatles and being like, "Oh, I would love to make my own thing," or was there something else?
I think it was a bit of that. It's a bit of wanting to be like some amazing artists that I was listening to. But I think I started down the road because I made an attempt at it, and my attempt was okay. I knew it wasn't great, but I wanted to continue learning because I enjoyed what I got out of that one attempt. And I think that's what keeps me going, is that I still create songs that I don't really care for, but I still want to get better. And that's what keeps me wanting to keep coming back to this. It's not me, because if it was a spark, I think I kind of picture a spark as I rolled out of bed one morning, I dreamt this beautiful song, and I went to the piano and played it, and it became a hit. It wasn't that. It was very much the opposite. I put down something on the piano, I wrote lyrics, and I sang it, and I myself didn't really care for it that much. And
Yeah.
that was okay. I wanted to get better, and I wanted to break that. I wanted to get to the point where I loved my music and I would be proud of my music. And as many times as I have to write a bad song and put out a bad song, that doesn't matter. It's just another song on the road to achieving that goal that I one day want to achieve.
That's great. I hope you heard that, audience out there. That's a great take. I love that. A question from McCule asking, how do you both plan your YouTube videos? And you kind of alluded to this earlier, but like I don't script my videos at all. Like I don't write a script. I maybe jot down an outline if I really have to remember something, but for the most part, I'm going into these videos like I'm learning as much as I can about the thing that I'm using. I get comfortable with it, and then I go into a video and I try to explain it in the most cohesive way possible. You alluded a little bit to like scripting. Is that kind of like do you go about it that way for most videos, or is that kind of fluid?
I do script a lot of my stuff, and it's mostly because it saves me a lot of time.
Yeah.
So if I script it, I know exactly what I want to convey, and I can do it in a very efficient way. And then editing becomes much more efficient as well. So if I script it and know exactly what I'm going to say, I improvise here and there. It doesn't come out exactly the way I scripted it, but that's okay. But it makes editing a lot easier, and I know that I kind of covered everything. Because otherwise sometimes I miss things that I really wanted to say. But I usually plan this stuff by thinking about what's natural in the progress of my channel. So I have that as the big picture, because I don't want to jump into something that I've never talked about before, because I know that I do have viewers who've been with me for a long time, and they want to see a little bit of a transition, a progression here. So I do think of that. I also think of what's the newest thing that's come out, because that's what people want to see, and that's what get people to view it. And I introduce a lot of new people to my channel with videos like that, because people want to see the latest gear. So I keep that in mind as well, and I always try to mix things up. I don't want to just do gear reviews. I don't want to just do tutorials or just tips and tricks or something like that. I want to do a little bit of everything, because I think we need a variety too when we're learning music. If we're constantly just learning the gear and learning our DAW, that would get boring. Every now and then we want to be like, let's be a little creative today, and let's write something or do some sound design rather than learning this new audio interface thing. So I try to mix it up because I think everybody likes that variety.
Totally. Idle Constantine asks, how did you stumble into the specific niche of music tech? I know we kind of talked about this a little bit already, but there were a couple of directions, like when you were coming off that break, going into making your own music, you were just inspired by the tech side. Like, you're a techie like me, I assume?
Yes, I'm a techie. I love the gear, and it's really exciting. I get something new, I want to open the box and discover what it can do. But it also is because I think it comes a little easy to me to understand it and explain it. Again, I go back to why my channel became more of the review and tutorial type of things, because people reacted well to that. And because people said, I really like the way that you explain things, and you're very clear in the way you explain things. So I started doing more of that. And so I think that fits what I do well. And I think it's important to figure out what you do well and stick to that. So I figured that I enjoyed doing that. People responded really well to it. And so that's kind of the niche that I chose.
Yeah, awesome. Our friends at Sensil are in the chat, and they say hello.
Oh, cool. Hey, Sensil peeps.
For those of you who don't know, they make the Stencil Morph, which is this really cool. You can just reach and just grab a controller off the shelf. It's a piano. It's a beat pad. Check them out.
It's fun. Yeah, it's awesome.
It's really fun. Let's see. Questions in the chat. I'm trying to keep up. I'm being very disorganized. I'm trying to also not be redundant at the same time. But somebody had a really good question that I am now scrolling around for, and I can paraphrase it, but I do want to give them credit. There it is. Falwin Horison asks, what would you say on insecurities when creating music, like thinking you might not be good enough and such? I mean, you kind of talked about this before, and I've had very similar moments where you make something and you put in all this time and all this effort and you're like, nah, it's fine. It's all right. Or you don't even like it at all. Like, how do you deal with that insecurity, and are there other insecurities that pop up in making music and content?
I do feel those insecurities. I felt it. I felt it as early as Sunday this week when I released my video of a song I just wrote, and I was feeling it so much that even the morning that I released that video, I changed the song drastically.
Whoa.
So the song was done, and Sunday morning I was like, I'm just gonna put the finishing touches on this video edit, and I'll put the video out there. And I listened to the song again, and I didn't like it. And that comes from me being insecure that somebody's going to listen to this and they're going to think that it sucks. And I don't want to hear that. And if I don't like it, I shouldn't be putting it out there. So I felt a lot of that. And I said, okay, what can I do for this piece of music? I made some changes, and I was running out of time. And this is, I think, something really important for what keeps me motivated, keeps me putting content out there, keeps me creating music, is that you give yourself deadlines. That I gave myself a deadline of Sunday. The video has to be out on Sunday. So yes, I have a little bit of time. I can make some changes to this music, but then it's just got to be done. It's got to be good enough. So I made those changes. I was happier with it. But that was it. My time was up. I had to finish the song, put it out there, even though it wasn't what I was aiming for. It wasn't what I heard in my head, right? And not as good as I wanted it to be. But it's time to put it out. It's time to finish that song in the state that it was in and just put the video out there. And I think that's so important to people who constantly work on the song, try to perfect it, and just keep, working on the song for months and years. You're stopping yourself from progressing by just holding yourself down with that one piece of music. And I want to say, you have to get it out there.
In the chat, Rev Sabes brings up a good point about like staying creative in the midst of deadlines, and I think that is a big misconception almost, to think that like having these deadlines would squash your creative flow or creative process, where I think deadlines actually help because they make sure that you're going to get something done.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'll say something else about being self-conscious about your music. Not everyone has to like your music. Yeah. Not everyone needs to be a fan. Some people will dislike your music. That's okay too. In fact, you'll know you're really making it when you have a lot of haters. So, it's okay that not everybody likes your music. You got to put it out there. Your audience will find you. There's an audience for your stuff. And I've said this before too, that you have an audience out there. Maybe it's an audience of millions, maybe it's of thousands, maybe it's of hundreds, but there's an audience for everything out there. Find the people who really react to what you're creating. They're out there, and keep putting out what you believe in. I say this all the time at the end of my videos, make the music you love.
Yes.
And the audience will find you. Not only that, it's not about finding the audience and getting the plays. It's about you sleeping well at night. You made something that you're proud of, that you think sounds good. That's good enough. And then you keep learning and keep releasing, keep getting better. But you just got to put it out there. Take that first step. Once you take that first step and release that first thing that even though it's not perfect, it becomes easier. It gets a lot easier down the road.
And we had some MTMYLs in the chat earlier for sure. That has become your
MTMYL,
slogan for sure. I want to touch on one more thing really quick. I'm going to scan the questions. Everybody has really good questions, but if you have like super technical like stuff, I'm sure that Sanjay has a video on it. Like some of them I'm seeing, like you can definitely go find a video on his channel that answers your question, or we already answered it in the chat today, so that's cool.
And I'm really active on my comments actually too.
Oh, yeah.
So if you do leave a comment under my video, I try to get to those as best I can.
Perfect. One cool, I think, human aspect of you as a creator is not just you, but you also have a very supportive partner who we see in videos from time to time. Can we just like talk about that a little bit? Because Darty is also in the chat as well, and I just want to give her a quick shout. Do you want to talk about
absolutely
having such a supportive partner, how you being a content creator and a musician, like how that relationship plays a role in it and how it works so well? Please educate us.
Okay, yes. My wife, who you all see on the Saturday videos, she always talks about, so I feature an artist every week, and she is the artist curator, the beat maker creator for the news stories. So she introduces a new artist. We feature their music in every news video every Saturday. So she is a big part of why I can do this. When we were talking about time management and me having a 9-to-5 and then, working on this YouTube thing every evening and on the weekends, it takes up almost all my time. I hardly have time for anything else. Me having a partner who really supports that and who lets me focus on this and really put this much time and effort into it. I know it's stealing away time from her. It's stealing away time from things that she and I could do together. So it's a big sacrifice that she makes, but it's not just a sacrifice. She comes along with it. She makes it fun. She was there at NAMM too.
Taking those pictures.
Yeah. She was there. Even when we were in her video,
yes,
me and TAETRO photobombing her video right there.
That's so funny.
But yeah, she's awesome. She makes this easy because she's a part of it. She encourages it. She's a cheerleader of it. And I'm lucky to have her in my life and part of this YouTube channel. Definitely.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's a really sweet point to end on. Folks who are like interested, and if you're not yet, make sure you're subscribed to Sanjay C's channel. The link is in the description. You can go to it, give him a sub, keep up with the news, etc. Go get the plug-in. If you are just tuning in like halfway through or something, this interview will be posted up later. I think it processes after we finish the stream, and then you can watch it. I will also be uploading it to TAETRO Radio podcast form, so on your favorite podcast platform, check that out. And also don't forget to check out 343labs.com for courses from beginner, intermediate to advanced on any aspect of the music production process, taught by expert instructors. A lot of us are thinking about going back to school time. Some of us are still staying home. We're kind of in this for the long haul now. And if that's you and you want to make some strides in your music production journey, go to 343labs.com and find a course that works for you. We've got them for every subject and pretty much every experience level. So check that out for sure. Sanjay, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. To all of TAETRO's viewers too, you guys are awesome. Thank you. Thanks, TAETRO, for being a great mentor to us all and for inviting me on this show.
Appreciate you. And that's the end of our interview. So I will see you all next week. I don't want to give away the guest yet, so it'll be a surprise when I upload the live stream. But thank you all so much for watching. This has been TAETRO for another episode of TAETRO Talks. Have a good one.